Thank you for having me today. So I'm going to be talking today a little bit about testosterone replacement therapy and prostate cancer. And testosterone replacement therapy is another one of those topics similar to GLP-1s that I feel like has really gained people's attention both in social media and just in the lay audience in terms of overuse, in terms of it, people thinking that it's kind of the fountain of youth and the cure-all, but there's good ways to replace testosterone. There's also bad ways, and there's one of the topics that's fairly controversial is exploring testosterone in patients who have had prostate cancer or have prostate cancer. And so over the past 2 decades, the belief that patients with a history of prostate cancer that's been treated are not candidates for testosterone replacement therapy has been fairly debunked. And it's been widely recognized that testosterone replacement therapy is actually safe to do in those that have been definitively managed with their prostate cancer based on appropriate risk stratification. And there's emerging evidence that it's also safe to do in patients who have low risk prostate cancer, so Gleason 6 prostate cancer, the patients that are on active surveillance, as long as they're counseled appropriately, can also likely be safely started on testosterone replacement therapy. So during this time, over the past 20 years, when testosterone in general has boomed in terms of its use and probably honestly overuse, there has been a fairly large shift in opinion with the belief giving patients treated for prostate cancer was dangerous, gradually becoming that it's safe, and then gradually becoming to that it might be even beneficial. So the current guidelines from the American Urological Association on testosterone and prostate cancer say that, one, clinicians should inform patients on the absence of evidence linking testosterone therapy to the development of prostate cancer. And two, patients with testosterone deficiency and a history of prostate cancer should be informed that there is inadequate evidence to quantify the risk-benefit ratio of testosterone therapy. So there still exist warnings on a lot of the testosterone labeling about giving testosterone to patients with active prostate cancer, although some of the labeling that existed for giving this to patients who have had prostate cancer has been removed. So what's some of the history of this? So going all the way back to 1941, the famous study by Huggins and Hodges showed that prostate cancer cells are fueled by androgens, and the application of testosterone to prostate cancer cells results in cell growth. And that was the basis upon which androgen deprivation has been used to treat metastatic prostate cancer. And so this is what has kind of fueled people's thoughts about the danger of giving patients testosterone replacement therapy. And it's what created the trepidation towards the use of TRT in hypogonadal men. So one of the questions that often comes up is, even in people who have not been diagnosed with prostate cancer but come to see their doctor for low testosterone and having presence of symptoms associated with it, what are the risks of it? And one of the common questions that comes up with, will this increase my risk of developing prostate cancer? And so this was one of the reviews that came up a couple of years ago that identified studies investigating the association of endogenous total testosterone and the use of testosterone therapy with prostate cancer over the course of about 16 years. And of all the studies that were found, perhaps most importantly in regards to testosterone therapy, were 2 meta-analyses of randomized control trials involving association with testosterone therapy and prostate cancer. And one of the interesting things was that these trials demonstrated a non-significant decreased risk of prostate cancer in patients receiving TRT, meaning people who had low testosterone and it was replaced to an appropriate level. So to somebody's question earlier, Abraham Morgenthaler in Boston had popularized the saturation model. This was the original study, which proposed that androgen receptors within the prostate and prostate cancer cells become saturated at levels that are far lower than normal circulating serum testosterone levels, around 200 to 250 nanograms per deciliter. And that raising exogenous testosterone levels beyond this threshold would not have any further impact on cell growth. And so this model suggests that patients who are hypogonadal, meaning having a low testosterone level but are not castrate, meaning essentially zero testosterone level, can receive testosterone supplementation by any form to raise their levels without increasing their risk of prostate cancer proliferation. And So that was the thing that kind of spurred the idea that this may be, in fact, safe. And so one of the earliest reports, going all the way back 20 years, on the safety of testosterone replacement after prostate cancer treatment came from a group by Dr. Kaufman and Graydon in 2004. And in their study of 7 patients, so not a huge sample size, but 7 patients who received testosterone replacement therapy after radical prostatectomy, the majority of these patients, granted, being Gleason 6 disease, no patient experienced biochemical recurrence. And since that time, there have been multiple retrospective studies that all show relatively low and comparable rates of biochemical recurrence comparing testosterone replacement therapy versus observation after radical prostatectomy. So in one of the largest retrospective series to date from Dr. Allering and his group in 2020, biochemical recurrence rates were actually significantly lower in their testosterone replacement group, alluding to somebody's question earlier, and this was among 850 patients that underwent radical prostatectomy. 152 of these were low risk, no evidence of disease patients that received the treatment. And these patients were followed for a fairly long period of time, over 3.5 years. There was a 7.2% recurrence rate in patients treated with testosterone versus 12.6% that had a recurrence rate who did not receive testosterone. So perhaps there is some protective effect there. And then in their analysis, the testosterone was an independent predictor of recurrence-free survival, as you can see in the figure here, with about a 53% reduction in the risk of biochemical recurrence at an average of 3.5 years of follow-up. And so they also found that men who were destined to recur, meaning who were going to develop prostate cancer regardless, the TRT had delayed the time to recurrence by an average of 1.5 years. And so the suggestion that testosterone might be predictive is interesting, but more investigation is certainly needed. So those were low-risk patients, and that, I think, people are fairly comfortable in treating at this point, but what about the people who are intermediate or higher risk? And so this was a study published by Dr. Kara's group in Texas at Baylor from 2013, which was a retrospective review of 103 patients receiving testosterone after radical prostatectomy and 49 eugonadal controls, and they looked at a high-risk group of Gleason 8 prostate cancer or higher, those who had positive surgical margins or those who had positive lymph nodes. And in the TRT group, it was 77 men with low or intermediate risk prostate cancer and 26 men with high risk prostate cancer. And they compared it with a group of similar patients that did not receive testosterone replacement therapy. And the 12 biochemical recurrences only happened in the high risk group after 36 months. 4 of these were in the TRT group, making about 15.3% of patients, and 8 of them were in the control group, meaning patients who did not receive testosterone replacement therapy, and their rate of biochemical recurrence actually was significantly higher at 53.3%. So this was another study that looked at radiation therapy for low, intermediate, and high-risk prostate cancer. Right? So we spoke about patients that were receiving testosterone replacement after radical prostatectomy, but what about those that are receiving radiation? Because there is still a little bit uncertainty there. So this was a group that looked at 98 hypogonadal men with a history of prostate cancer who underwent radiation therapy and were subsequently started on testosterone replacement. And of the 50 men who received ADT in addition to radical therapy for radiation therapy for their initial prostate cancer management, while the remainder received radiation alone. And the interval between ADT cessation and testosterone initiation was fairly wide. It was between 5 to 60 months. Sorry, I actually had an extra slide here that unfortunately disappeared, but I'll skip over that. But in short, it was actually identified that it is similarly safe to administer testosterone in these patients that receive radiation as similarly to patients who receive a radical prostatectomy. So this was a case-controlled study from 2016 that looked at the National Prostate Cancer Register of Sweden, and this was 284 patients with prostate cancer and 1,378 controls who filled prescriptions for TRT, and there was no association found between testosterone replacement therapy and overall prostate cancer risk. And patients who were receiving TRT had actually a lower risk of aggressive prostate cancer. And the point that this group had made was that decreased risk of aggressive prostate cancer with testosterone replacement was a novel finding, but warranted further investigating. It was difficult to make further conclusions from that. So shifting gears a little bit to a different patient cohort, and this is where there's a little bit more controversy, is patients that are Gleason 6 on active surveillance who are hypogonadal and would like to receive testosterone for their symptomatology of low libido or weight gain, et cetera, low energy. And there is a small but growing body of evidence to support testosterone replacement in these patients, given that active surveillance now, as we know, is the treatment of choice for patients with low-risk prostate cancer. So this, again, came from Dr. Morgenthaler in Boston. This was 222 men who had prostate cancer and received TRT. 92 men underwent radical prostatectomy. 50 underwent radiation therapy, 3 underwent localized HIFU treatment, and 57 of them were on active surveillance. And overall, prostate cancer recurrence and progression rates were no higher for patients receiving testosterone replacement than expected rates for those not receiving testosterone. But there was interesting data from two key groups here. One was that the progression rate of 10.4% in 47 men on active surveillance with greater than 4-year mean follow-up. And there was a 0% recurrence rate in 5 men who were treated with radical prostatectomy, followed by salvage radiation with a mean follow-up of over 2 years. So this does suggest that it's likely safe to give these patients testosterone replacement therapy, and if they do have recurrence or progression of disease, they can be treated safely just like any other patient. Now, a little bit more recently, there was a study by Dr. Hu that came out from Cornell, also looking at the oncological outcomes of testosterone therapy for men on active surveillance. And this was a SEER data study that used to identify men diagnosed with prostate cancer over a 10-year period who were managed with active surveillance and received testosterone compared to those without. And so the primary outcomes were conversion from active surveillance to active treatment by whatever modality, radical prostatectomy, cryotherapy, radiation, or androgen deprivation, and prostate cancer-specific mortality and overall mortality. So they found that 28 men, 17% conversions to active treatment in the testosterone group, about 22% in the no testosterone group. So fairly similar numbers, and these patients also were shown to have an improvement in their quality of life. And so furthermore, this was a recently published study just 2 years ago from the Roswell Park Cancer Institute, and they performed a retrospective review of their institutional data of their active surveillance database, and hypogonadal men, again, with prostate cancer who received replacement therapy during surveillance were identified. And they saw that 24 patients who underwent testosterone replacement therapy while on active surveillance were identified and were matched to 72 patients on active surveillance not on testosterone replacement therapy. And so they found that 5 patients, 21% of them in the TRT group, converted to treatment after a median time of 4 years, compared to 17 patients, or 24%, in the control group after a median time of 3 years. And patients who did not receive testosterone replacement therapy had a mean increase of PSA of 0.08 nanograms per deciliter per month, compared with only 0.01 per month for those who received TRT. So again, is there potentially some kind of protective effect? Maybe. Now, the next question is, are people actually comfortable doing this? So this is actually a survey that was reported in 2016 about urologists' opinions on testosterone replacement in men on active surveillance for low-risk prostate cancer. And there are a couple of interesting points here that highlight the increasing awareness and shifts in increasing comfort prescribing testosterone in this patient population. So 65% of respondents said they would offer TRT for testosterone deficiency if on active surveillance for prostate cancer, and 63% believe it's safe to prescribe testosterone replacement therapy for patients on active surveillance. So as far as prescribing it for patients that have undergone curative treatment, 96%, so a pretty fairly universal, believe that it's safe to do so after radical prostatectomy. 84% believe it's safe to do so after radiation, and 86% believe it's safe to do so after brachytherapy. So there's a couple of considerations also to keep in mind in these patients. It's not something that should be just kind of given out without proper counseling and thought. So one is the AUA guidelines recommend a goal total testosterone in the middle tertile of 450 to 700 nanograms per deciliter. So those guys that are looking to become the Incredible Hulk and have a testosterone of 1500 is probably not a good idea. And patients should be followed closely with labs, probably a little bit more closely than the average testosterone replacement patient. And so baseline PSA followed by repeat serum PSA at 6 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, and then every 6 months thereafter. And then the other thing to keep in mind is generally most people would recommend doing a short-acting formulation, such as a gel or an injection, at least initially, as compared to a long-acting replacement like pellets or depot injections that are in your bloodstream for the next 2 to 3 months potentially. And so if you have a problem, hard to get rid of it at that point. So in conclusion, patients with symptomatic hypogonadism and treated localized prostate cancer should be considered for testosterone replacement therapy. That does not mean that everybody with a low testosterone should just be receiving it without the presence of symptoms. There have been numerous retrospective studies that have demonstrated the safety of TRT use in patients following definitive treatment. And then there is a limited but growing evidence to support the safety of testosterone replacement in patients with low-risk prostate cancer on active surveillance. But as with everything else, prospective studies are needed. Thank you. Interesting question.
Any questions? Very quickly, Dr. Telis, thank you for that.
One quick question.
Yes.
Leon, very good talk. So my question is, if you know the patient has undergone radical prostatectomy, margin is positive, PS is 0.1, would you like to give a testosterone replacement therapy for them? Because most of the study, what you have quoted, for radical prostatectomy also, for radiation therapy also, they have the baseline negative PSA means less than 0.01 or something like that.
Right.
So there's no head-to-head comparison, because if you know the PSA is 0.1, now you give a testosterone replacement therapy, then you can really say whether progression is there or not there. So those are the retrospective cohort. They have not been assessed in the objective way.
So I think, first of all, it's important to keep in mind how long has that been stable for, right? Is that 0.1 immediately after the radical prostatectomy, or has that been stable for X amount of time? And the other thing that's important is how symptomatic are they? I wouldn't recommend starting in somebody who has mild symptoms or somebody who's being considered for some kind of salvage therapy, whether it's radiation or androgen deprivation at that point. So I think, as with everything, it's a lot of counseling. I've seen, I've treated patients who did have high-risk prostate cancer, who generally would be recommended not to receive this, but they're so symptomatic and they really want their quality of life to improve, and they're really suffering without it, and they understand the risks, and that's something also to keep in mind, that if they are really symptomatic and benefit a lot from this, a lot of people actually are willing to take the risk of progression of disease.